Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Agritourism Monthly Webinar Series. Today, we're going to be talking about extending the agritourism season. So, creating year-round experiences that keeping visitors coming back to your agritourism operation. So, you might just be a lavender farm that has kind of like a 4 to 6, maybe 8 week window of when things are in bloom, but finding out other things you could possibly add to your farm. You might be you pick blueberry operation, but want to figure out some other ways to like extend your season and continue to bring people back to that farm. So there's a lot of different ways to think about how to extend your agritourism operation season. So my name is Lindsay Pageau. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension's Harvest New York team as an agricultural business development marketing specialist. I'm also the statewide agritourism specialist. So why extend your agritourism seasons? There's a lot of benefits when it comes down to it. You can generate more consistent income versus like if you're more going to be like a seasonal crop that you're growing. This will bring income in continuously kind of into your operation throughout the season. It'll help improve your cash flow throughout the year. It'll better utilize your facilities and staff. So if you, instead of just having your facility just be like stagnant, basically, 10 months out of the year, if you only really have a crop for 2 seasons, there's other ways you can bring in some additional revenue when it comes down to it. And then also staff and considering about staff turnovers. Just like all of us, we want a consistent income coming in. So that's going to be the same way the staff that you hire. So if you're only employing people for a very short period of time, they may not be there for your next season when it gets down to it. It also builds strong customer relationships about what you're doing in agriculture into your community. Um, it reduces resilience on one harvest or event. So, like just focusing on that one harvest or event that you have, and what happens if you have a crop failure. This will give you like a backup just in case things do happen throughout the season. Um, it increased return on marketing investment so that if you're spending, a couple $1,000s a year to market your farm for a very short period of time, that marketing money could, is investment that you could be using to market your operation to the entire year. So, you can generate anywhere from an extra 2 weeks of income. I have example 4 to 8 weeks, but it also could be for you're a 12-month situation. If you're thinking about different events, you can continuously add to your operation. When you're marketing, understand what visitors want. So you want to research which groups and customers you want to kind of focus in on. There's benefits for trying to cover everything, but you might not be able to. It might be anywhere from like your local families, your school groups, couples, group tours, corporate clients, and travelers. So I know of a number of agritourism operations that this is all their focus, basically their group is they cover every single one of these. Um, from, inviting your local neighbors and stuff to your farm to really investing in your local school to have them come visit your farm throughout the season. Different couple events like a kind of a date night on the farm with maybe a food truck. It might, if you're a winery brewery, make it more of like a couple thing. Um, so there's a lot of different ways to look at who your visitor clientele is going to be. You do want to ask a number of questions to your customers, especially to understand what your customers are looking for. And examples are like, when are they available? Is there a better time? So right now we're in summer. Their kids are out for school, so you're not going to have any school groups unless there's some summer programs that are happening. But there are like a number of like school teachers with the kids that might be available, but people still are working, full-time jobs year round from on Monday through Friday and only have the weekend. So really knowing what type of customer you have and like where to focus on. What experiences are they seeking? Are they seeking like an educational experience? Are they seeking a tour? Is it just kind of looking for items they might want for the holidays? So seeing what type of experience they want. And then how far will they travel for your experience? Depending on what is going to be. Are they traveling, like if we're in New York State and you're upstate New York, are they traveling from Vermont, like 2 hours away in some locations to come to your unique festival that you might be having that during the season? And then how much will like willing to spend? I always like to tell people like you also need to consider how much it costs for you to invest and to do that activities. So if you're asking a customer and you say, "How much do you pay for this wreath making workshop?" And they go $10. You know that wreath does not, there's way more supplies than $10 into that plus the instructor. So you have to really think about like who you're asking, ask number of customers about what they're looking for and these specific questions that I have listed. Also, this is like doing a survey for previous guests for ideas, and this might just be like word of mouth, or maybe you actually send out a physical survey through email to your clients when it gets down to it. So, creating seasonal experiences. So these are just some different like ideas. There are so many ideas that you can do on your agritourism operations to extend the season. So maybe like you are a berry picking farm, but you need to want to extend the experience. So like having like a petting zoo and people are coming to the farm in the springtime to see like the baby animals. Springtime might be also like your tulips and flower festival, farm tours, plant sales, summer berry picking, farm dinners, live music, camps, fall, pumpkin patch, corn maze, apple picking, harvest festivals, winter, like a holiday market, wreath workshops, Christmas trees, and sleigh rides. So I think of one of my local agritourism operations that I bring my kids to throughout these different times of the season, and that they have the petting zoo in the springtime and the plant sales. And then I come back, and my parents come back too with my kids to do berry picking on the farm. And then in the fall, we have the opportunity to go to the pumpkin patch and corn maze and apple picking. And in the wintertime, like we could go buy our Christmas tree there. So they're like, depending on how much you really invest your time and how much revenue you want to make, there's opportunities like to really extend those your agritourism season. So adding indoor attractions, weatherproof your business, and having a facility to be able to have events is really important. I've talked about that in a couple different workshops in the past, especially our how to host an agritourism workshop is having a location where people can go to and get out of the elements. So a farm store, an educational exhibit, a workshop space, and the workshop space might be anywhere from like a 12 by 36 building, like half of it's screened in and half of it's completely covered. So you could do small workshops when it comes down to it, a cafe or bakery, an event barn, a demonstration kitchen. So the agritourism operation I was talking about, they actually like have a beautiful farm store available. They have a pavilion, they have a cafe bakery, and they have a beautiful like barn for like the petting zoo. So, they've invested a lot into it and it has paid off for them in the long run when it comes down to it. And as I mentioned, think about really when you're weatherproofing, it's those poor conditions, what customers are willing to be in and not willing to be in. Most customers do not want to be in the direct sunlight. They don't like the bugs. They don't like the hot. So figuring out ways to accommodate that. It might be from, having a full-on facility with air conditioning, but it also could be somewhere that's screened in with fans, that's out of the shade, with kind of shade covers too, to make people more comfortable when it comes down to it. Extend activities into the cold months. So like a lot of agritourism operations have also gotten into like outdoor recreation when it comes down to it. So like the cross country skiing, the hiking, just ways to bring people to the farm. People might have an entry fee to get into. Their farm shops may still be open at that point in time, so they're figuring another way to generate that revenue. And it's increasing that visitor spending. So offer educational programming, becoming a learning destination. So when we think about agritourism, we think about generating, it's our we're generating additional revenue for our agricultural products that we're producing, but there's also the line of education that we always should be considering when it gets down to it. So it might be school programs when it comes down. There's a lot of kids that are also homeschooling at this point and are looking for activities, and especially um, agriculture activities to do with the homeschooling kids. Adult education programs, so they might want to come to your farm and learn about, how you're growing the strawberries or how you're growing the blueberries. The gardening clubs. Gardening clubs, I feel like always kind of contact agritourism operations, especially the cut flower ones, because they want to do tours and learn about what you're growing and how you're growing it. And then those culinary enthusiasts that want to really experience that product that's being produced on the farm. So it might be an actual like a cooking workshop when it gets down to it. And then there's different topics that you consider, like sustainable farming, different animal care, food production, how things are produced. There's so many people that don't know how our food system works and how many people are involved. So really educating the public about where that apple, it has started from to how it gets onto that shelf. People are very interested of how many people are involved with that process. Are different type of pollinators that are out there, how to compost, soil health, and then and just continuing to educate these and attract visitors throughout the year. Hosting workshops and classes are always a great revenue option potentially for an agritourism operation. So anywhere from, depending what you're growing. So like if you're growing things that can be, wheat on the farm, and you can do like a bread making workshop and actually showing people how to mill everything from, very much the milling process all the way up to that finished bread making product that you're producing. Having a cheese making workshop, floral arrangements, such as like how to put bouquets together, or it might be like a wreath making workshop. Soap making, beekeeping, photography classes, and then holiday decorating. So usually like using these workshops and classes usually are premium pricing because there's especially experience. It just also depends of where you live. If you live in an area where there's more disposable income, you can definitely, of course, charge more of a premium price than maybe some of more of our rural locations in the state. So just kind of thinking about, you know, the workshop experience. And there is on our YouTube channel a whole webinar on hosting workshops from start to finish. So getting an idea of like what it would take. Because with hosting workshops and maybe even doing educational tours, you don't have to always be the person that is leading those. You can bring somebody else in that could potentially run those workshops for your operation. Also think about expanding your event options, using your farm as a venue. So hosting of weddings, corporate retreats, birthday parties, family reunions, different holiday celebrations, community festivals, farmers markets. I've seen more and more like kind of farmers markets kind of pop up on different agritourism operations over the years. The one thing I do want to like add in here, I didn't add a slide, is thinking about insurance. Like you definitely need to all these different activities that you're adding onto your agritourism operation when you're bringing people in for like a farmer's market or community festival. You really need to consider having insurance, and they also, as vendors, will probably, well, they will need insurance when it comes down to it. These events provide income outside traditional harvest season, so they're a great opportunity for agritourism operations. Develop food experience. So consider doing like farm to table dinners, brunch events, cooking demonstrations, seasonal tastings of like what is available on your farm, winery and brewery partnerships. So I've seen a number of those recently come up on Facebook on different agritourism operations, maybe bringing in a winery or brewery. And so you would just have to work out the licensing requirement with the winery brewery in New York State Liquor Authority when it gets down to it. So the wineries and breweries, do know that they're usually their insides and outs of what they can and can't do. And some of the wineries and breweries have marketing license added on to their license so that they're able to go onto these operations and do tastings. Chef collaboration, so having a chef come in and offering that kind of that farm to table dinner or maybe other type of experience. So food experiences usually encourage repeat visitors. I know of an operation in my area that does a lot of different cooking workshops and everything, and there's a lot of like repeat customers when it comes down to it. Um, Also, consider increasing this will consider increasing retail sales. So, when people come to the farm for these additional experiences, they're potentially going to be stopping to the farm shop, buying products. And then you may also want to consider like bringing in things that might not be produced on the farm, but are produced locally, like preserves. Like if you're a flower farm, you might have preserves or honey, maple syrup, um, fresh produce, baked goods, gift baskets for like all those different things that you're selling in the farm shop, or even like local artisan products. Retail sales continue. Even when fields are dominant. So when people are out there and they're doing you pick blueberries or the raspberries, people are still going into the farm shop and they're potentially buying other things than just having that you pick experience. You're going to also need to consider like what type of marketing you're doing. So you can think about marketing every season, keeping customers engaged when you're doing extending your season or potentially to continue to do year-round sales. So I feel like as most of you guys probably know, consider using email newsletters, social media, having an event calendar. Some agritourism operations and just businesses have loyalty programs. Consider doing online tickets. Online ticketing makes people commit to actually showing up. Example, like I've been to a number of like rock concerts before in the past. And yeah, the weather hasn't been so good for the concert the day of it, but I bought the ticket, so I'm going to show up. If I hadn't bought the ticket, then maybe I wouldn't have showed up for the event. So having that online ticketing and getting people to commit is really important. Also having seasonal promotions, really pushing whatever is in season on that farm. And then so promote the next seasons before the current one ends. Um, so like if you're doing right now, I feel like strawberry season's kind of rolling to the end in the North Country and we're moving into blueberries. And I know one of the agritourism operations, their blueberry operations is going to be opening up for UPIC on Wednesday. So they get the information out a little ahead of time because they know it's about ready to go. So providing that information ahead for customers. Um, Partnering with local businesses and building regional tourism together. So collaborating with hotels, restaurants, wineries, breweries, chamber of commerce, tourism agencies, creating weekend packages, like passport programs, cross promoting between your agritourism operation and that like the hotel or the restaurant about what they're doing too. Um, Having joint events with your different local partners and partnerships just expand your audience of who's going to be viewing your social media and who may be coming to your agritourism operation. Comfort encourages longer stays and repeat visits. Measure success, so track what's working. So monitor your visitor numbers, the revenue, especially by the season. So like if you see that you're doing an event and one year it makes like off one day makes 3,000 and the next year it only makes $200, maybe it's not worth your time. But maybe it still makes, at least half or more, but it's still bringing revenue. Maybe it's worth doing. So really looking at what's being generated for revenue, what's worth spending your time. Take event attendance of how many people are attending on those like special events that you might have. Um, Customer feedback of like, do they want this event to still be around? How was it run well? What could be improved? Look at the average spending of people. So like, so you're having one of your these out of season events and you're seeing like if you put the donuts and the cotton candy, maple cotton candy, and you put the cookies right next to the checkout, is that going to help like your sales? Are people spending more money on those items to get that like average spending might be? It might be, entry might be $15, but you have those things and then they spend an extra like 10 or $15 on top of that. So looking at what works for you. Repeat visitation, so hearing people come back for an event because it was so well run, that makes it encouraging to continue to do that thing again. And then just your marketing performance of how well people heard about the event. And then just kind of as I mentioned before, use data to improve future offerings of what you want to be able to offer and what you don't want to offer on your farm. Key takeaways, extending your season, grow your business. So successful agritourism operations usually have a diversification of activities, especially if they're creating like year-round experiences or just trying to extend that season a little bit longer. They tend to invest in visitor comfort, like I said, getting people in the shade, um, getting people in a cooler environment. A lot of the time, especially in the summertime, is really important, or making sure people don't freeze to death in the fall. Um, Building those community partnerships with helping to doing that cross marketing, and then consistently market your agritourism operation and the different events and measure results and adapt. So the next two slides are actually different experiences that I've had over the years. And I just kind of like, I'm going to mention this agritourism operation that's local to me, Parker's, up in the Shazy Beekmantown area. So their maple operation. So you can get their product year round at different stores. You could go to their farm to get it. But every year I take my kids, and we've been doing this for a couple of years, up to Parker's for their Christmas experience. They do like 2 weekends of it, and they have somebody as Santa Claus. They have an amazing amount of different maple products, and I actually like maple better than chocolate. So why this is one of my favorite events is so they have like the donuts, the maple cookies, they have maple ice cream, cotton candy, and then I get all my other like maple products that I may still be able to get throughout the season, but I like stock up right there before the Christmas holiday. So it's bringing that additional revenue into that farm right before for the holiday. It's always, every time I've gone, there's always been like a consistent flow of people in and out. They have a beautiful building to host this in. You can see their commercial kitchen. You can see all their equipment to make the maple syrup. Um, and they have a really good setup because they're involved in Maple Weekend, and they're one of the big ones in my area for Maple Weekend. And I always just love that I love when these operations have the little things that you can put pictures of your kids with this one has a maple leaf. This is another operation that my colleague that's on right now, we experienced when we went out to Milwaukee. Um, so their big like event for the year is Halloween. And that's why I want to kind of like mention like these holidays, even though like you might not be open um for the Easter time, but having an Easter egg hunt, but opening your farm shop up for that could bring that additional revenue when it gets down to it. Because I feel like a lot of the times parents do appreciate these different events and all the effort that goes into it, so they're willing to like invest too into the farm when it gets down to it. So this one just was a really unique operation with a lot of different themes that with pumpkins, and this is where you would go like in that area to buy your pumpkins. And then you take pictures with all the different like Minions and Wizard of Oz, and I think they might have had some Disney ones too. So it was unique, and I think a lot of the times people are just looking for different experiences, especially unique ones. I always hear a lot of the time people want to like the fairy festivals or the Renaissance that are things that are outside usually of your you can do outside of your growing season. So I just really focus in on what your customers um, want to kind of see in your area. So I want to thank everyone for attending the webinar. I'm going to stop the recording, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is lep67@cornell.edu.